Someone fell asleep while I was getting all set up. Hey there guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing baby girl's birth story. Before I get started, I do want to say a few words. These words include, we have prayed for this sweet baby girl for years. We are incredibly grateful that she is here 100% healthy. And yeah, the years of waiting for her were brutal. I am not a big crier. I pride myself on being a West Texas cowgirl. I have wept hard in the years of waiting for her. So just know that we have wanted her forever. Also, that every birth story is incredibly precious. I am not a medical professional, do not claim to be, and this is not meant in any way, shape, or form meant to be a recommendation and/or medical advice. The reason that I'm sharing this is that these stories are really fun to listen to. Every birth is completely different. Every woman is completely different. Every child is different. So please keep that in mind while you listen to our story. I ask that everyone is respectful of our family's choices in the comments. Women are often inundated with information when it comes to birth, and people are very, very, very opinionated about the right way and the wrong way. And it is 100% not okay to shame a woman for making the wrong choice or the choice that you don't agree with. Every woman is doing everything they can to do what is best for their baby and to bring their child into the world in the best way possible so that they arrive healthy and safely. With that being said, after discussing things very in depth with our doctor and with my medical history, we scheduled an induction for baby girl. This was not necessarily the plan that I had set out with in my mind, but it was the absolute best decision for our family. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to title this video, but if you're like me and you have just found out that an induction is how your child is going to be born, you're gonna jump on YouTube and do research and figure out what this process looks like, because honestly, I was pretty scared when I found out that we were going to be induced. I say we, I was going to be induced. Anyway, this is what the process looked like for me and our family. I received an appointment card at my last checkup, like regular pregnancy checkup with my doctor. I received an appointment card telling me the date and time to arrive at the hospital. Our hospital, the maternity ward doesn't open up till 7:30 in the morning, and my appointment was for 5:30 in the morning, which is just fine, but it meant that we had to go in through the emergency ER section. Honestly, it was so weird knowing the date and time that I would be going to the hospital. In fact, mentally, I kind of freaked out pretty hard the night before, but it did allow me to pack my hospital bag and have everything calmly ready to go. Like there wasn't a rush or a scramble. That morning, I was able to wake up very early, which I'm a morning person, so it was less terrible for me than for my husband, who is not a morning person at all. When he heard the time, he was not thrilled, but it allowed me to get up. I took a bath, I relaxed, I calmly put on some makeup. Yes, I did. I put on makeup before going into the hospital to have a baby. I was able to eat breakfast. I had made myself some overnight oatmeal the night before, and so I chowed down on that. I wanted to make sure I had some good food in my body before going to the hospital to go into labor to have a baby. And I also drank a cup of coffee.
And sometimes epidurals don't work. You can poop yourself.
Yeah, sometimes during labor, things other than your baby come out of you. I wanted to make sure that having drank my cup of coffee, drinking coffee fixes that for me. So all the pipes were clear. I know that's TMI, but freaking out about the induction and then doing things like drinking a cup of coffee, eating food before I went in, making sure my bag is all packed. Those were things that helped me calm down. It kind of gave me a little bit more of a sense of control over the situation, which is odd because you would think, theoretically, getting an induction scheduled would give you more control. But instead, it made me feel out of control. Yay, yay, pregnancy hormones and all the feelings. So we arrived at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning at the emergency ER entrance, and thankfully no one was there. There was one other couple checking in for their induction as well, and we were walked to the maternity ward by a very nice security guard. And as soon as we went in, we met our nurse. She was the night nurse, just about done with her shift. And it took quite a while to get me all hooked up. Yeah, they hook you up to IVs. They start running you some fluids. They want you to have some fluids in you before they start giving you the Pitocin. And you also sign all those terrifying documents saying that if you need a blood transfusion, you agree, etc., etc. Once all the forms were signed and I had had some fluid run to me, the nurse checked to see if I was progressing at all since my last doctor's appointment. I was not. I was still at 3 centimeters dilated and 50% effaced, which is bang on with where I had been. If you have watched my other pregnancy videos, you will know that that is where I was at after I tried all the things to induce labor naturally. Honestly, I tried really hard to start labor naturally, to not have an induction. Nope, didn't work. All the old wives' tales failed me. They started the Pitocin right at 6:30, an hour after we had arrived. And honestly, they started it off really light, and I was terrified of Pitocin. I have heard so many horror stories. I actually had the oxytocin, which is the natural form of Pitocin. Pitocin is the synthetic form, but I was getting oxytocin. I was actually kind of glad that I was getting that instead of the synthetic version. And I kept waiting for the contractions to start. I had been having so many Braxton Hicks contractions that were very painful for weeks, and I was expecting the Pitocin to make the contractions way worse than just the warm-up Braxton Hicks contractions, right? No. The Pitocin, I didn't know I was having contractions. I was sitting there talking to the nurse, chatting with my husband, watching TV, kind of just twiddling my thumbs, waiting for the Pitocin to start doing something. And I also really wanted an epidural. After discussing it with the night nurse, she said that usually what they do is they start the Pitocin, and once you start to feel the contractions, then they call the anesthesiologist to come in and perform the epidural. Reason being, simply they want you to feel that the epidural is working. That way they can adjust the medication in the epidural to make sure that it is doing its job. So that's why I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs, kind of waiting for the contractions to start getting bad. I was like, okay, they're really going to have to turn up the Pitocin at some point because I'm not feeling anything. Turns out they had turned up the Pitocin not super far, but they had been turning up the levels of oxytocin remotely for a little while. And the nurse came in and she was looking at the chart, and I was having contractions, pretty big ones, and I couldn't feel it, which blew my mind. And they said, we'll wait until they start hurting before we call the anesthesiologist, because we really want to know that the epidural has gone where it's supposed to. My doctor came in at 8 that morning to break my water, because that is part of the process of having an induction. They start the Pitocin. If you want an epidural, you get an epidural, and then your doctor comes in and breaks your water so that you continue to progress. Well, she came in at 8 and I still didn't have my epidural. And I was like, please don't break my water before I have an epidural. And my doctor was like, great, no big deal. I'll come back later once you have the epidural. I really appreciate how supportive my doctor was of this process. Like, having a really good support system with your doctor and your nurses and your significant other is incredible. So in about an hour, I did get the epidural. They called the anesthesiologist. It wasn't a rushed process. It wasn't like, get the anesthesiologist in here now. I believe he was in surgery, and that's why it took from 8 to 9 for him to get to me. Usually, I was told that he could be there in 30 minutes or less. Like, the longest he would normally be would be 30 minutes. But as he was in surgery and I wasn't in desperate pain, I got the epidural at 9:03 to be exact. Now, I have heard stories of women where the epidural is more painful than contractions, and that is not my experience. I was not having painful contractions. I had just barely begun to feel them a little bit by the time the anesthesiologist came in. He gave me the local anesthetic shot in my back and gave me the epidural. I didn't really feel it until they started running the medicine into my body. It did burn a bit, and there was a little bit of a shock down one of my legs. It was totally normal. I personally have really compressed discs in my lower back. It's from an old horseback riding lifestyle. Honestly, I was really hard on my body when I was younger. So when I told the anesthesiologist, ooh, that shocked, he said, yeah, that happens sometimes. Here, let me fix it. He fixed it immediately. It wasn't terribly painful. And as soon as I did get the epidural, I didn't feel the contractions at all anymore, and I felt really good. I will say this, I was pretty vocal with the nurse and the anesthesiologist that with my previous pregnancy, I had received an epidural. I tried not to do an epidural with my first pregnancy, with my first labor and delivery, and that was not gonna work for me. I made it up to 8 centimeters dilated and was completely exhausted and not progressing anymore. I was ready to get the epidural, but for whatever reason, the epidural did not completely block out the pain. And I thought that that was what epidurals did. I thought that was standard. No. This time around, I didn't feel anything. The epidural worked 100%, and I could still move my legs. So after being really vocal with the nurse about how my last experience, I still felt quite a lot of pain, she went, that's not normal. What we're gonna do is we're gonna roll you from side to side to help work baby down into a good position and to make sure that the medicine has a chance to travel to all the places it's supposed to go. Apparently flip-flopping you back and forth helps the medicine flow where it needs to go. So after I received my epidural at around 9, my doctor came in around 11 and broke my water. I was expecting to feel a pop or a gush, Nope, it was just a super gentle trickle. When she came in to break my water and check me, I was actually progressing at that point. I was at 4 centimeters dilated. Then things picked up a lot. Once the water is broken, the body really does wake up and go into hyperdrive. By 1:05, I was 8 centimeters dilated. Funnily enough, my poor husband had left to go eat finally. He was starving and he had left to go get some food, and the nurses came in and checked me and said, "Oh, you're at 8 centimeters already. Wow, that went fast." I texted him, I was like, "You better hurry and get back here." Oh, I'm sorry, hon. I talked too loud and I made her jump. So he got back in plenty of time. I probably shouldn't have panic texted him. At 2:10, I was what the nurse called complete, which is 100% effaced and 10 centimeters dilated, AKA ready to start pushing. I never did feel the urge to push this time. Last time with my last labor and delivery, I did feel the urge to push. This time I did not. Once they told me, okay, you're ready to start pushing, I think I said this already. It was at 2:10 that I was ready to go. My doctor came in and things get busy when you start pushing. The room fills up. I think there were 2 nurses on either side of me, 3 or 4 waiting to receive baby, and if baby needed to go somewhere very quickly for more medical attention, they were there. But there's something interesting that happens during labor where in the first half of labor, you're like really talkative and kind of excited because it's finally happening, baby's coming. Your body kind of like feels energized. And then the longer you progress through labor, you go through the different phases of labor, you kind of go super introspective. You get really quiet and internal and very focused. So by the time you're ready to push, you don't care that there's all these people in the room. Or I didn't. I kind of just, for me personally, it kind of feels like a meditative state. I close my eyes and I just focus on everything that my body is doing in that moment. So I barely noticed who all was in the room. I had turned on some praise and worship music and had that going on my phone. Anyway, at 2:10, we started pushing. What you do is you bear down for a count of, I believe, 10. Maybe it's 5. I've slept since then. Actually, I haven't slept too terribly much, but I have slept some since that experience. So it's either you hold for a count of 5 or a count of 10. My nurse directed me through that, telling me to stop, take a big breath, and then push and hold again. Thankfully, as soon as I started pushing, baby really started to move and come down. I'm a good pusher, apparently, according to my nurse. And by 2:30, baby girl was born, and it was amazing. As soon as she was born, I started crying with my son. He actually came out really blue, and they kind of whisked him away to the other side of the room. They didn't have to take him to the NICU. He didn't leave completely, but they took him and started helping him in the room. But this time, when she was born, she came out a beautiful brick red color, and they placed her on my chest immediately. I had very minimal tearing this time. The first time around, it was pretty bad. This time around, very minimal. We left the umbilical cord for 3 minutes before it was cut. That allows just a little bit extra nutrients, nourishment, oxygen, goodness to travel to your baby right after birth. I really appreciate my hospital because it's standard procedure. Maybe it's standard procedure everywhere, but I feel like I've been told you have to request this, and I didn't have to request it. I got to sit there and snuggle my baby for an hour. Things got really quiet. It was just me, my husband, and her in the room. We started working on breastfeeding, and I was amazed. After she was born at 2:30, and at 3:30, she was already latched and nursing, which I was really grateful for. I do plan to feed her for her life, but I would like to breastfeed her for as long as I can. She was just about 7 pounds even when she was born. She was 7 pounds, 0.3 ounces, and she was tall. She was 20.5 inches tall when she was born. We did go in for our 1-week checkup, and she had already passed her birth weight, which is exactly what you want. Typically, most babies lose weight for the first week, and then they gain the weight back in the second week. Doctors, pediatricians want babies to be at their birth weight 2 weeks post-birth. All right, guys, that is our story. That is how baby girl came into the world. It was mind-boggling to me that we arrived at 5:30 in the morning, and then by 2:30 in the afternoon, she was in my arms. Honestly, I feel really grateful that after years and years of praying for this baby girl, after the scare that we had in the second trimester of this pregnancy, and that an induction was the way that she was going to come into the world, I am so grateful that the process at the end, her birth, was so smooth. I'm healthy, she's healthy. Recovery for me this time around has been amazing. It's been a night and day difference, and she has just been awesome. The first 2 weeks of her life, she was so quiet. Now she's waking up a little bit, and she will protest a bit when she doesn't like something, but she's eating well, she's sleeping well, she is so healthy. I feel great, and I am so grateful for those blessings. Those are incredible blessings that I am grateful for. Editing Courtney, jumping in here. I don't feel like I was really coherent the day I filmed this. I was really tired. I do want to add the note that I had a 34-hour labor with my first pregnancy, with my first labor and delivery. This time around, 5:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. I think that that actually played a huge part in how well I recovered this time. I was really, really exhausted from my first labor and delivery. I felt amazing after this labor and delivery. I felt really good. I feel like the induction process actually worked really, 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 really well for me, and I am grateful that it went so smooth. Also, something I forgot to mention is that after the hour of skin to skin and snuggling in the labor and delivery room, they then move you to the recovery section. So you don't stay in the same labor and delivery room. They do move you to the room that you spend the night in, because they do want to watch you and baby for 24 hours after birth. So by 2:30 the next day, we were discharged. We were leaving. We went home, and it was perfect and awesome and amazing. Okay, back to the video. I am slowly dipping my toe back into making some videos for you guys, but we will absolutely continue the Curly Girl interviews. I am so grateful to everyone who agreed to do a Curly Girl interview, so we will absolutely be sharing all of those with y'all. And if there's anyone else that you kind of want to see interviewed, let me know. I hope that y'all are enjoying these interviews, and thank you for allowing me to share our birth story with you guys. Thank you guys for all of your prayers throughout this entire pregnancy. Guys, y'all are awesome, and I am grateful for y'all. I hope you are having an absolutely fantastic day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.